as it happens, there is a bowl game this week. I know you all have been waiting for it. We're going to get into it today. Chiefs depth chart is out. Couple little tweaks here. They're getting ready for their normal practice week. Derrick is here to give us all the inside scoop and what's important. We're going to get into it all today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We are brought to you today by BriteCo. You want to check them out because they do all the things that you need for a very special offer there. Check out Locked On, BriteCo.co/Locked On. That'll get you the insurance that you need, and we are happy to welcome them aboard to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free, every platform that we can find. This is the Chief Show. You can find many other shows like the Draft Show. I had to go solo yesterday on the Draft Show. Watch out. All my hot takes from college football. Ooh, you're not going to like all of them, but try it anyway. Derrick's here from ChiefsDigest.com. You can find him there. You can find him on the beat, on the sidelines, in the press box, everywhere that's important. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, and I do not get to do all those things. So Matt will tell us all the stuff that we need to know. And hey, happy Labor Day. How was it?
Fairly uneventful. So that's sometimes for the best.
I like that.
So the last day off before the grind, and it wasn't technically a day off since we got to talk to Andy Reid. But as close as the NFL gets to a day off.
Right. Now, Tuesday is their normal day off in a given week, and they are off today. But we are getting the inklings of how this is going to go. I'm almost a little bit apprehensive here because of the early schedule. We'll talk about that later coming up. But they put out, just for giggles here, a depth chart. We'll talk about that in a second. But when they're on the field over the weekend for the unofficial practice, looked like everybody was out there. It was full strength from what we understand, or from what Andy said. Is there anything maybe iffy there? Anything we should still be concerned about?
Yeah, I'm still going to be interested on Wednesday to see the participation reports for a few players. Juju Smith-Schuster, probably the biggest one on the offensive side, to see where that left knee is. I mean, if he's a full participant and he's not limited in any way on Wednesday, that's a pretty good sign. If he's still listed at all, I mean, that's definitely worth watching going forward. But how they list Juju is going to be pretty interesting. And there's obviously a few guys on the defensive side. I mean, which I think that, Carlos Dunlap is the most interesting as far as that Achilles and how far he's coming along. There's a few others, obviously, that have been banged up. Leo Chanel was in the concussion protocol. Trent McDuffie, Rashad Fenton have all been dealing with some things too. Let's see how all these guys are listed. I mean, Andy Reid said everybody was a participant on Monday, but that was no pads, nothing, no contact, anything like that. So that can be a little bit different. And there's no participation report, so we don't know if they were limited or full, what the kind of status was there. Wednesday will be the first hardcore practice. So let's see what the participation report comes out there, because that'll be the best indication about what's going to happen on Sunday.
Agreed. And the concussion protocol can hide a few things because of the participation steps. So you can be ready to go on a walkthrough and still not be clear to actually compete in practice the next day, even though they're right back to back. So there's a lot to find out there. For me, the bigger one is Carlos Dunlap, because I don't think he got enough reps in preseason because of the timing and then the injury and everything else. He's one of the interesting listings here. He's playing two positions according to Chiefs PR. So I find that interesting, but not listed as a starter. Does that concern you at this point, or is it just about this injury and you can coax him in whenever you get him in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, hey, the Chiefs are not listing Carlos Dunlap as a starter. One, I mean, I think that's where they need to be. I mean, they need to be in a spot where he is a backup, where he's coming in and being a guy that just gives them more snaps. It might be more problematic if the Chiefs feel like at this point that Frank Clark and Mike Dana are truly their two best defensive ends. That might be a bit of a concern. I'm not sure how that's going to actually work out. I mean, if I saw Frank Clark and George Karlaftis come out for the first snap on Sunday, I won't be surprised. But once again, I mean, this needs to be a team where some of these guys rotate, and and they're not putting all of the workload on just one guy. So, no, I mean, and Dunlap may start. I mean, who knows? I mean, I think that's really up in the air, because we haven't seen that defensive line group, and especially that edge group, fully healthy with everybody on the field at the same time, since Dunlap's arrival. So let's see what happens there. But I would not be surprised at all if we just saw a bit more of a rotation than we've seen in the past, because certainly what we've seen in the past has been a lot of Frank Clark and other guys rotating. This year, probably we're going to see a little bit of Frank Clark rotating too. And that's what I think this team needs to do in order to keep these guys, fully healthy and fresh throughout the entire 17-game season.
Yeah, I think it's very matchup dependent too. I mean, you can see the Cardinals come out in four wide out set. You're probably not going to have Mike Dana out there. It doesn't matter whether it's George Karlaftis or whether it's Carlos Dunlap. You got to get more pass rush in that kind of situation. Also, is very key. A guy that you mentioned, Leo Chanel, listed as a starter at Sam. I mean, they don't designate Sam. Sorry, folks. I'm reading into that. Just saying. That's what he's going to play. But
that's what he's going to play.
It is, again, dependent on the set that comes out against them. They're not going to start in the base unless they have to.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit what they decide to do with that. If there is going to be a fifth linebacker on the roster on Sunday, they obviously have a roster spot available after putting Blake Bell on IR on Monday. So they could certainly bring up Elijah Lee, which was originally the plan, to have a fifth linebacker back on the roster. They could even, punt a little bit as far as even just using a game day activation on a linebacker, bringing up Lee that way if you want to, take your time a little bit before you fully commit to that roster spot. But there's a few different things that they could do. And yeah, the fact that they only have the 4 linebackers on the roster right now is a little bit of why you're seeing Carlos Dunlap listed as the backup, what would be Sam behind Leo. I think they must have just gotten tired of copy and pasting Darius Harris as the backup everywhere. So why not list Carlos there? Don't think you can. There's a reason it says unofficial at the top of the page. So
there you go.
Take it with a grain of salt that it is.
It makes perfect sense. I'm with you. Maybe you can clone Darius Harris. Maybe you just got to copy and paste. I don't know. There's a lot that goes into that. Other tweaks, I think it's very clear that Jody Fortson's going to catch more passes than Noah Gray is, at least by design, yet he's listed as the third. Again, folks, this is unofficial, but just naming some quirks out here. The thing that comes out to me is there's 3 listed rookies. And as starters in this league as a rookie, it just helps them, I think, make the adjustment. Just jump in the fire. You've seen the preseason. You've gotten to the point where you understand where that's going. Is there any reason not to start a couple of the rookies right now?
If they're ready to play, no. And there might even be a little bit of, holding back a little bit. Like Trent McDuffie's listed as a starter, but honestly, it wouldn't surprise me, even though I'm going to consider him a starter, wouldn't surprise me at all if in the base defense, it's Snead and Fenton, and then it's McDuffie coming in as that third corner. Now, he still may play anywhere from 60 to 100% of the snaps given the set this week. And against Arizona, I would expect the Chiefs to probably be in 3 corners a lot against this offense. So yeah, I mean, he probably will be a starter this week, essentially. But how the Chiefs rotate there and how they do treat those guys as starters, it will be interesting to me. Honestly, if Chanel starts, I mean, if Elijah Lee's back on this roster, maybe he starts in front of Chanel. I can't guarantee you that. I think the fact that they did let Leo start that third preseason game is pretty telling about where they feel like he is right now. So that's a pretty good indication for him. Karlaftis is going to be ready to start at probably some point sooner than later. So, getting him in there would not surprise me. I mean, the fact these guys are all going to play. I mean, that's something I think you can bet is that a lot of these rookies are going to play a lot of substantial time, even if they're not listed as the starters right now.
Folks, we're going to talk about where they're going to play, what we need to see from them coming up against the Cardinals here later in the show. But I got to tell you about our newest sponsor over at BriteCo. I know you want to do something super special to do that engagement or that big life achievement kind of celebration all at once in a way that she'll never forget, and this will be a life memory. I get that. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to sail out into the middle of the water or climb a mountain or take a helicopter ride or do what I did and try to circle an alpine lake in a romantic setting to try and give away that ring that says, this is it forever. There's a lot that goes into it. Mistakes happen for everybody. Sometimes it's not exactly what you expect. Don't fall out of the helicopter. Don't end up in the drink. Make sure you cover yourself with BriteCo because the guys at BriteCo are geniuses. They made buying insurance for your engagement ring or your watch or whatever you want to insure so freaking easy. You can get covered in 2 minutes on your cell phone. You won't find a better deal on great coverage that's super affordable. Brite.co/locked on. That's where you got to go to get it taken care of. That's Brite.co/locked on. Well, if you're going to insure yourself, you got to insure yourself about putting up points in the first week. You got to get off to a good start, in my opinion. I think it's imperative. And so let's talk about the offensive things that we need to see in week 1 against the Cardinals, knowing that week 2 is right around the corner 4 days later. What's job number 1 for you, Matt?
I mean, the one thing I think that this offense wants to go out and do immediately is just push people around to a degree. And it's going to be different than in the past. I mean, this team is still going to take some shots downfield. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you're not turning Patrick Mahomes into a game manager. Don't hear what I'm saying that. But I think there's going to be a little bit more, emphasis this year on just trying to be brutally efficient. It's not about maybe moving the ball down the field in 3 or 4 yard chunks. That's not what we're talking about here. But this team wants to just consistently move the chains. They want to stay on the field. They want to take what defense is giving them, take those occasional shots when they are there without forcing it. But honestly, an extension of what we saw in the preseason, which was the vanilla version of what the Chiefs want to do. But they want to hold on to the football. They want to push people around offensively. They want to go down the football field and score. And they don't care how fast they do it. I mean, if it takes 30 seconds, 13 seconds, 8.5 minutes, they just want to control the football and push people around. And that's what I think you want to see them do against Arizona. No 3 and outs. You don't want to see drives that, fall apart because maybe they get undisciplined and try to push some things that aren't there. If teams are going to come out and do what they've done against the Chiefs, the last year and a half, which is to come out and play these 2 cover shells and force everything underneath, this team is built to absolutely exploit that. So do it. And if you start showing that you're going to do it, guess what? Suddenly all the things you want to do downfield are going to start opening up a little bit.
Well, and that's the exact, it's a chess match, right? So it doesn't matter to me. I mean, you all know that it matters to me. I'd want to run the ball, but it doesn't matter whether it's a running call play or, a 4-yard scoot over the middle that then puts the ball in the receiver's hands. It is about taking what's there. And I think the bigger thing, I like the physicality that you mentioned, but for me, it's about making defensive coordinators pay for what they choose to do in deciding how they're going to defend Patrick. And I do think 2 high shells are more about Patrick than it was about Tyreek in general. Yes, he's the guy who would exploit that, but it is about corralling Patrick Mahomes at the end of the day. So make him pay. All of that considered, whether it's run or whether it's the short passing game, do you think that Andy's ready to do that in week 1? Or is he going to play this game where he's too vanilla and he kind of saves some of that and he kind of doesn't emphasize it till later in the season?
I mean, my gut says that we're going to see the Chiefs open it up a little bit. I mean, will we see everything out of the box in week 1? Probably not. But I mean, I think that, and I always say this, I mean, to me, Andy Reid's offense each season is kind of like a symphony. And what he does is he tries to build themes and he tries to show you something in week 1 and he'll show you something in week 4. Things that you're going to see throughout the year, but you're never going to see the same look twice. You're going to see variations. Just because you see a play and you think you know what's going to happen doesn't mean that the next time that Andy Reid shows it to you, he's going to do the exact same thing. I mean, if anything, he's playing a chess game. He's trying to show you things for the intent purpose of then playing off of that 8 weeks later. And there's going to be things that they do against Arizona just because they simply want to set things up later in the season. I mean, that's one of the brilliance of Andy Reid, that he thinks long-term and like that, and that he doesn't just treat each individual game as its own distinct game plan, but he does, have a bigger picture about the things that he does. I mean, they're not going to dump out everything in week 1. I mean, you're going to see them, I think, roll some things out, especially with how tough this schedule is early, but some of the things that they're going to see. But I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, you're going to get a flavor for what the Chiefs want to do this year and what their, modus operandi is going to be based on what they do against the Cardinals, because this is the moment to come out and set the tone, to show defensive coordinators how you're adjusting some of the things that you're doing, not everything. But I think they're going to be a lot less vanilla than they were during the preseason. But maybe you're still going to see some carryover. You're going to see some common threads between some of the things that they were trying to do during the preseason, just doing them differently against the Cardinals.
Well, and I think that's really key, especially knowing that the Chargers coming along so tight behind in terms of there's some install going on right now this week for the Chargers game. We have to remember that. And so I really want to see them keep it as simple as possible. I want to see them hit everything underneath and not really look downtown, so that when they get those 2 high shells, it's telling Staley and the rest of the Charger staff, hey, we can creep somebody down into the box. We can play single high. It's going to be okay. because I think at the end of the day, it's great to get a win against the Cardinals. I do think that is the foregone conclusion in my mind, but it's more important to get that win against the Chargers. Am I wrong, or am I putting the cart before the horse?
No, you're not. I mean, one of the least impactful games on a team's schedule are road games against teams from the other conference. I mean, just based on the importance of an individual NFL game, I mean, the road games that the Chiefs play against the NFC are the least impactful games that you got as far as how it affects your playoff standings, tiebreakers, all of these things. And the most important things that you have are divisional games. So, yeah, I mean, for all those reasons, the Chargers game, especially being at home, is a lot more important than a road game at Arizona. But, I mean, Andy Reid wants to win both. I mean, he wants to be 2-0. But he certainly doesn't want to lose one at the expense of the other. So you're right. I mean, it's not about emptying out everything that you've got, both physically, mentally, even, game plan wise, just to beat the Cardinals. If it means that, you're going to, lose to the Chargers. I mean, you gotta prepare for both. And you're right. I mean, it's delicate. I mean, I almost think that playing that second Thursday game is just as difficult as playing the first, because you're right. I mean, right now, typically you'd have part of your staff and part of your scouts working on a game plan and looking at the Chargers. Well, there's nothing to look at. I mean, all you can look at is preseason film. I mean, they're not going to be able to start looking at anything until Sunday. So, a lot of the preparation that you could do later in the season for a Thursday night game, you can't do it this week.
I think it's going to come in on how they use guys, how they get creative. Sky Moore's one rookie that I want to see a lot. We obviously have questions we talked about in the first segment. We have questions on defense too. So we have to see how can they take a step forward right off the go this season. We're going to do that coming up next. You just got to decide, is Patrick going to go off for 300 yards? Is actually one of the other receivers, is MVS going to get 80 plus? Those are the questions you have to ask. I love this format, and it's from our friends at PrizePicks. You got to check them out. It's super simple. It works just like this. Pick 2 to 5 players, and then if they go and score more or less than the PrizePicks projection, you just have to pick that. You can win up to 10 times your money on any single entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections. Pick a line. Is it under? Is it over? That's the only decision you have to make. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. Obviously, NFL would be at the top of your list, but NBA, MLB, NHL, all of them, all the way down to boxing, disc golf, cricket, all kinds of things that are way out there just by picking lines. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals are there as well. Currently operational in 30 states and Canada. And download the PrizePicks app right now. That's how you get into it at prizepicks.com and go sign up to play their daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match on $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit 100, PrizePicks gives you 100. If you deposit 50, they give you 50. Don't forget, you got to go sign up at prizepicks.com with the code LOCKEDON to get that instant deposit match of up to $100. I would like to get that myself. And yes, I already have. So I did take Patrick on the over, folks. Check that out. I think you'll find it very interesting. Now, we talked about Sky Moore just for a second. I wish I'd gotten more to him because I think he's kind of the X factor on the offensive side. Like, how much are they even going to use him this week? I think that is very cognizant about where McCole Hardman's usage is as well. On the opposite side, it's clear that, as we discussed in the depth chart, rookies are going to be front and center here in this group on the defensive side of the ball. And maybe more so than any preseason or first game of the regular season that we've seen in a long time, they have to be able to step up and perform right away. Kyler Murray is an interesting challenge when 2 of those rookies are starting in your front 7, knock on wood, if you're in the base. Containing him has to be job number 1, in my opinion, because of the lack of Nuke Hopkins. Am I overreading that, or are there enough weapons to really threaten the edges on this team in Arizona?
Well, I mean, you've tapped into one thing that we do know about this Chiefs defense, which is that Steve Spagnuolo is still the defensive coordinator. And his number one approach whenever you face a mobile quarterback is you keep them in the pocket. I mean, you can't let them escape. You can't let them buy time. You can't let them get comfortable, with just making plays. You've got to force them into the pocket, keep them in their lanes, keep them from escaping, all of those things. That's first and foremost. That's why, sometimes getting the quarterback down isn't as important against a team with a mobile quarterback for Steve Spagnuolo as much as it is making them uncomfortable and making sure that they don't get into a rhythm, that they don't get into a spot where, Murray is clearly very comfortable making plays outside the pocket, and that's where the big chunks come from. And coincidentally, that's where the opportunities are going to be when you've got younger guys downfield. There's going to be opportunities that pop up when, you miss coverages, which rookies are going to do. And you give Kyler Murray buy some time outside the pocket. He's going to, take advantage of those situations. The other thing, I think that, the Chiefs have to plan for and just accept is that if I'm Cliff Kingsbury and I'm Kyler Murray, I'm circling these rookies on the depth chart and saying that's where the ball is going. Why challenge, L'Jarius Sneed? Why challenge Justin Reed when you've got maybe 2 or 3 rookies at a time out there in the secondary? You look for them every single time. So, I think you've got to be able to, if you're Steve Spagnuolo, you got to be able to roll coverages to help your rookies out. Don't put them on an island the entire time. If that front 4 can maintain their lanes, make sure that Murray doesn't escape, can get up in his face, make him uncomfortable, but keep him in the pocket, and you can help out your rookies in the secondary a little bit. You're going to have to, I think, cheat a little bit there to do that. And, you're banking on the fact that this team's got a little more defensive speed to be able to do that. But, this is going to be, I think, a great test for this team, both offensively and defensively, because what the Cardinals try to do, the Chiefs are going to see a lot this season from a lot of other quarterbacks. And how well they hold up against and I think that the Cardinals are going to be, it's really difficult for me because Cliff Kingsbury, let's face it, he's typically good early and bad late. And this team is honestly built to be different. This team is going to probably take a little bit longer to gel because they've got some new pieces on offense. I would expect, conventional wisdom would say that this team's going to be better later than they are right now. Let's see. But I even without Hopkins, they pose a challenge, especially with a lot of young people on this defense. So I think that's a great challenge. You're going to find out a lot about this Chiefs defense this week.
Yeah, I think so too. And folks, you're going to hear my keys to victory on Friday, as well as my game plan video over on RGR on Friday as well. But I want to ask you, Matt, because of Kyler Murray's unique skill set and because we're trying to protect other rookies, there's a rookie we haven't talked about that stands out to me that will be in my game plan pretty predominantly. And I know that if I'm not personally driving the Brian Cook bus, you are. So tell me, can they risk that? Can we see them be in the dime that they like so much over the last few years, with Cook being that third as a way to really kind of protect against the mobility of Murray without really putting him or the corner that he's backing up at risk?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to have to. They are going to have to trust Brian Cook a lot. And I think he's prepared for it. This seems like a guy who has a pretty high football IQ. He's got a lot of experience. He's a little bit different and honestly, all these rookies I think are a little bit different than some of the early picks that the Chiefs have had in recent years. Like a Willie Gay took a little bit more development time because he just didn't play a lot in college. Well, you know what? Brian Cook's got a ton of college experience. And he's seen a lot already, even at his young age. So I think that's a distinct advantage with what he has seen already. And there's going to be some growing pains, but I think if you're the Chiefs, you got to figure it out. You can't be afraid, and you're going to have to lean on that speed that you've picked up and the range that you picked up with these guys to believe that, hey, there's going to be mistakes. You're going to catch up on some of them. Maybe there's going to be some mistakes that you can erase that you couldn't do before when you had some breakdowns. So let's see. But no, I think we're going to find out a lot about a couple of guys. And to me, it's McDuffie and Cook. This week, we're going to find out a lot about how ready those guys are.
I think maybe the thing that I'm most interested in is to see how Juan Thornhill is used and what he can do. Now, he's talked a lot of game this preseason. And I think he, more than any other, is in a position to, if Murray gets flushed or if he gets to the point where he's trying to make something happen, I think there's going to be opportunities to take the ball away. Is it, in your opinion, more likely that it's Juan in position to go take that ball away, or is it someone else? Is it the rookie corners? Who should we be watching?
I think Juan's a pretty good guess because I feel like Juan's going to spend a lot of his time on the back end. Of those safeties, Reed's probably going to be playing closer to the line of scrimmage most of the time. Cook is more likely to be playing in the box, or playing a little bit more in the middle, and Thornhill's going to be on the back end, so it means he's going to be in some double team opportunities. He's going to be I would probably say that he's going to be the guy that you would probably shade a little bit over towards the rookies on occasion. So that's going to be an opportunity. I mean, there's going to be some double coverage, places where the Cardinals are going to probably try and challenge, because they feel like they've got a rookie in that situation. They've got some young guys, and they may bypass a situation where if it's Snead and single coverage and you've got McDuffie on the other side, and even if it's a bracket that maybe you misread, there's an opportunity there. And Thornhill's probably the guy. So yeah, I mean, this week I would say my unexpected turnover guy probably would go on Thornhill.
I like the way that sounds. Just, I'm not going to ask you for a score prediction here, but do you see this as a win or a loss?
I mean, I think it's a win. I mean, I think the Chiefs 1 through 53 are a better team. I'm never going to bet against Andy Reid in week 1 in September. I mean, all those things, even road's about the only thing that you have a problem with. But you know what? I mean, I remember Andy Reid going on the road to New England not that long ago and beating every living tar out of him. So to me, there's no way in this scenario that I can possibly bet against the Chiefs and Andy Reid right now. And I think the Chiefs win, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhat comfortable.
One more tidbit from me, Andy. You need to put the fullback wheel in, because the Chargers need to see that on film this week in order to make them worry about it all next week. I'm really
forget Noah Gray is tight end too. Just get Mike Burton in there in Blake Bell's spot. I mean,
that's what I'm talking about.
He can block, he can catch.
Okay, so it's now an RV. Brian Cook is in the driving seat, but Mike Burton's on top of the roof throwing out pennies and whatever else. This is going to be fun, folks. We have more coming for you as we get ready for the first season game of this campaign to return to SB 57. It is now, right? Hey, I got to make sure I'm counting correctly. Yes, it is in the radar already. So thank you for your time and being here, Matt. We appreciate you very much and all your insights.
Always a pleasure. Looking towards another great season with everybody.
ChiefsDigest.com is where you can get all Matt's works, folks. You know how to sub and hit the bell here on YouTube, as well as subscribe on the audio platforms. Thanks for being with us today. We'll have plenty more for you and a crossover coming as well. You don't want to miss that. Here